Hello there. Welcome to another episode of This Old Truck. Today's episode, we'll be replacing a valve cover gasket, a PCV valve, and an O2 sensor. If you need any help with anything or any questions, please put it in the comments below. Let's get started. Alright, what we'll be dealing with today is the 3.7 liter version of a 2004 Dodge Dakota. It has a leaking valve cover gasket, an O2 sensor that's messed up, and a PCV valve over here that's clogged up. Got my gasket grommets. I'm actually going to replace the gasket on the oil filler because I also had to replace the PCV valve. I think that's the problem of having rough idle stuff. And an O2 sensor just for check engine light fun. Extra quart of oil. And I'm about to start tearing this sucker apart. One of the funny things is this booster has to be shifted, so I got to loosen the bolts. And said bolts are they're behind the dashboard. So I gotta go into the dashboard. Alright, update number one. I have removed the battery just to get myself some room. Also removed the intake cowl and everything. That being said, I've started loosening some of the nuts, some of the bolts for the valve cover, and they're just over hand tight. I mean, it's not like they're real tight. It's just a few pounds of pressure on it. You don't have to crank it down. So they're all breaking loose pretty good. I've got to take a few more things off so I can get, I have to take the, I don't know, they go to the spark plugs. I can't remember. No, these are actually, yeah, that goes to the spark plug. Take those off so I can get this wiring harness off, because the wiring harness is actually connected to the bolts, and those are probably going to just snap off. They're so, after plastic gets heated and cooled so many times, it's eventually just gonna, it's brittle and it's gonna break. I mean, this is an 04. She's roughly 14 years old, so yeah. As far as loosening this, I think I found the bolts, so let's go check that out. Go in here. I have taken, get some light. I've taken off the lower section of the dashboard, which is just a few T20 star screws. And if you look up in there, I think that big bolt, I can't point it out, but anyway, I'm shining a light on it. That bolt right there and that bolt right there, I believe, are what holds the, I keep wanting to call it the master cylinder. I can't remember what the thing's called. Brake booster, I think is what it's called. I don't know. I don't do a lot with brakes. So I think if I loosen these two here, I'll be able to maneuver that around a little bit. Some of those brake cables are solid. They're not flexible, so it's not going to give much, but maybe enough room to maneuver the valve cover out. Okay, side note as we continue on this journey. This is the breather valves for the breather hoses. Please note to self, these go under these heater tubes. Okay, just side note. Oh, and fun bit of information. This one is cracked, so I'm gonna seal that sucker up, put it back, and this one connects to that tube right there, which goes into there. So just remember, this that I am removing goes under the silver heater lines. Alright, note to self complete. Alright, continuing on, I have placed a bungee cord here to hold the heater core lines up, and I can't move this right here without cutting this. So once again, a note to self, replace, dang, that was brittle as all hell. I didn't even need the cutters. The thing was just, yeah, it's just falling apart, crumbling like ash. I don't think I have to worry about it, but all these vacuum tubes and hoses, just remember, that was a There was a thing there. You guys remind me of that. Alright, side notes continue. Vacuum hose here connects there to the, we'll call it a throttle assembly. I don't know, throttle body's all I know of. Anyway, so this vacuum hose connects to there. It runs this length here. This hose connects to this solid plastic pipe right here. And there's a smaller hard plastic pipe here, which connects to a smaller hose here. So these hoses all have to connect there. I'm going to pull this hose that goes to the throttle assembly and tuck it under the brakes over here under this wiring harness. So that goes to the throttle. This goes to something under the battery. I don't know where, and this goes somewhere that way. So pulling that over there, these all connect to here. Dear Lord, I hope I remember all this. This is why, if you're wondering like, oh, this video is boring, he's just showing us stuff, he's disconnecting. This is more for my benefit than yours. Because I tend to forget things that I have disconnected. So, also another note to self, I have disconnected the wire from the back of the alternator, as well as the cable that goes to the top of the alternator, and I have tucked it over here in the into the battery housing. So, all right, good stuff. All right, update. Pulling more wiring harnesses out. The problem is, I think that's the yeah, that's the injector. The injector right there. This is the fuel line, the silver thing. I have marked 1, 3, and 5 on my cylinders here because the harness, thankfully, Mopar, you have labeled it 1, 3, and 5. Minor problems. These connectors are brittle as all get out, and some of them, the locking tabs are snapping, and they're not going to lock back in place again. But I mean, once they're there, they're going to be there. I don't think it's going to be a big issue. We'll see. I mean, it's nothing I can do. This repair has to be done, and I'm not taking anything apart. I'm not forcing anything. I'm being as gentle as I can be with a very, very old vehicle. Alright, desperate times call for desperate tools. Yep, that is 4 extensions. That's every extension I have for 3/8. Because I found out those 2 bolts right there do not hold the thing on. It's the 4 bolts that I can't even give you a view of it. It's ridiculous. There's 1, 2, 3, there's 4 hiding back there. Yeah. And they are darn near impossible to get to. I think I've loosened them enough to get some movement. Let's go to the front and look. Alright. I've gotten all the cable harnesses as loose as I can get them to move them around. This thing is still not more mobile than it was, but it's still not mobile enough. All the bolts on the valve cover are loose, so it begins. Status report. Alright, I've had to found a way to get to the bolts, but I had to take, you guys probably can't see that, I had to take that is the brake pedal light switch. It just says do not reinstall. That's comforting. Alright, so that I can get to the bolts. Otherwise, I was doing it one click at a time with this little ratchet box wrench here. Alright, as far as the engine goes, let's take a look. I'm still having the valve cover is loose. Yay, there's the valves. Junk probably falling in there. So I've got to be able to shimmy this a little bit more to get it out, because getting it out from behind there is the problem. So that's where we are right now. So I finally got the brake booster loose, and what's funny is I went to my neighbor and asked for all of his 3/8 extensions. Yeah, so that happened, and instantly he's a mechanic, and he said, "Oh, you doing removing a brake booster?" So apparently among mechanics, it's a well-known fact that brake boosters, you've got to have every 3/8 extension possible to reach from about here to the firewall. So that's good to know. Status update, day 3. I'm kidding. I've completely taken off the master cylinder. I've had to move break this fuse box, not break it, but take it up where it will move so I can get the brake fuel reservoir forward, so I can move this forward so I can get this, which is now firmly loose, out. So just remember also, this is another vacuum cable. It goes into here, and here's another. Oh God, where'd it go? Okay, here's the vacuum hose for that. Oh my word, I'm never gonna put this back together. Humpity a dumpity. Alright, there is the valve cover. That's the top front. A little bit of debris in there, a little char. About 200,000 miles of wear. As you can see along here, right about there was the leak. Pretty substantial leak. And man, seriously guys, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get that thing back in there. Another step, I took the power steering pump off. You can see it's being held on there by a bungee strap. So there's the power steering pump, the serpentine's off. Yeah, the reservoir stuck up to about here, and I figured it'd make it easier. What's difficult is, all right, look, I know a lot about engines, but this, I believe, this is the fuel line, and this thing just continued to block the way. If this thing was not here, if I could remove this and get it out of the way, it would be so much easier to do. But I don't know. I don't know anything about that system. I mean, these are pressurized fittings, pressure fittings. So I don't know if I want to go into that, because that's beyond my expertise. So I'm going to clean up the valve cover, put the new gasket on, and pray. Alright, looking at the valve cover, you can see where I took off, I mean, it just shattered. Here it is. Here's the original one, and as you can see, it's brittle as old plastic, and this is supposed to be rubber, I think. The new one is, yes, it's a squishy rubber substance, and this is a piece of it here, and as you can see, it just cracks away. So yeah, oil was seeping through all the little cracks in that. And this is the bottom section of it, so this is where it would have been leaking the most, and that's where it's the most brittle. Of course, that's also where it's above the exhaust manifold. If you look in here, the valve cover would be here. This is the exhaust manifold. So it's got a heat shield there, but I don't really think it's doing a whole lot except maybe protecting the brake system. So. Okay, Lord help me. I hope that, as you can see, it's back on there. I'm about to start tightening it down. Got the new gasket, the blue there, you can see. Man, I hope that with the finagling I had to do to get it in, get the thing back in there, I hope I didn't break anything worse. There's no fluids falling out. A lot of these, see the way this is, I mean, I bent some of these lines here. I hope I didn't crease them. I know if I hit the brake. So yeah, start piecing it back together now. Got it cleaned up. It looks a lot better. You can actually tell what part's new. Alright, got most of it back together. About to put the battery back in. Clean that up real nice. Also took the oil filler off. I didn't show you that. I will show you what I took out, and I replaced the PCV valve, which is connects right in here. It's a mess to get to. It connects to this hose here. Here's the old PCV valve I took out. Yep. Let's get that in better. Let's get that in some better light so you can truly appreciate the clogginess. I don't see how anything was getting through that. I got a K&N air filter. I'm about to clean it and recharge it. Lord, I hope this thing cranks or runs. Power steering pump's back on. Serpentine's back in line. So we don't flang that off. I had to go back and look at some of the video I did earlier. Thanks for watching that. To know that this side you went over that, and this side goes under these. This is the heater core lines here. They couldn't just run them here. They had to run them all the way across the engine and down. The 3.7 liter V6 of Chrysler. This is what's in Jeeps and Durangos and Dakotas. It's kind of like their go-to engine for almost a decade. Not a lot of changes in it year to year, so it makes it, you can get parts for it easy. Every part that I needed, valve cover gaskets, this valve, an O2 sensor, yeah, they were all in stock at my small town auto parts store, because there's just so many of these on the market. You know, everybody is having the same issue with them. So anyway, I'll keep you updated and let you know. It's, by the way, I'm on hour 5 now, so it's been 5 straight hours of working on this thing. Alright, the final part of tonight's journey is this. For those of you who know, this is an O2 sensor. This is bank 1, sensor 2. So I'm getting a failure on, which this one looks like it's got 200,000 miles on it, which it does. So alright, so it's next day. My K&N air filter is dry. Gonna charge that puppy up with some oil, put it back in, and it'll be the moment of truth. We'll see if she cranks. Wish me luck. It never ends. So it looks like on the next edition of this old truck, we'll replace the lower radiator hose, because apparently it's got a hole in it. It never ends. So what happened was, back around Christmas, I replaced all the radiator hoses and the thermostat. And when I installed the lower hose, it appears I didn't get the angle of it just right, and it has chafed against a bracket or something in there. So it's had a slow pinhole leak that has now progressed into a full-size leak. So we'll be replacing the lower radiator hose today. So the reason I originally thought this wasn't a problem is that I overfilled my washer fluid container. And as you can tell, I used a different washer fluid that is green. Same color as coolant. So when I would see these little bitty spots, I just assumed I overfilled this, because as you can see, it leaks out as the vehicle sloshes around. So but it turns out, if we come down here, let's get deep. There is, you see this little, I can't. Alright, see that little pipe right there? It's connected to a bracket right there. Under that bracket is where it's making contact with the hose. So There's the clamp there. There's another clamp on the side of the radiator, and we got to take that out and replace it. You can see where it's slowly been dripping down the frame there. So let's take a look, shall we? Got it removed here. You can hear it slowly emptying my engine of coolant. This is the hose, the culprit, and looking. Boom! That's it. And it lines up with that bracket right there. So if you look right here, that little sharp bracket right there is what punctured the hole. Now I know. So now I'll know, making sure when I install the new one to watch out for that. The one thing I hate about this job is these. I don't have the proper tool for for pushing these in, and so I use channel locks. And man, once you get these things, once you squeeze these end to end and get it all the way clamped, it's like holding a grenade. You're just waiting for it to just pop and snap, which I've had happen many times. Finally got those clamps on. These clamps here are the devil. They're evil unless you got the right kind of tool, and I do not. Look down there, I got that one on. So here's what happened. There's that bracket again, and you will notice it's nowhere near the hose. Well, that's simply put because I did not remember the orientation of the hose as it originally went in. So the hose I put in back in Christmas, I put in backwards so that it did not bend the correct way and did not clear things like that brake fluid, brake line bracket. So now I know. I've learned from this mistake. Shall carry on. Well, that'll do it. She runs. No more smoking, no more leaking that I can tell. Everything seems to be running fine. Check engine light was still on, so and if you ever need to reset that on one of these, remove the negative terminal, leave it disconnected, get in the truck, turn the key on to crank for about 10 seconds, turn it off, reconnect the negative terminal, it'll reset. And if there's still a problem, of course, it will come back on. But looks like we're ready to go. Thanks for watching. Oh, side note, my next video should be, well, I have a video coming up, another trip to Disney. You're gonna do the Christmas party again. That's coming up middle of November, and should have some Universal footage for you. So the more exciting videos. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.